Welcome, all who hear my stories. I hope you enjoy them. This is a collaboration of my top videos from 2021. If you enjoy the content, then like, subscribe, crush the bell, and leave a comment. So come join me as we enter this new year. The Black Demon. My name is Jim, and I have studied these oceans for almost a decade now. The Sea of Cortez and the Baja Coast holds legends of a great beast. One I doubted until the day I met it. Depths reaching 1,200 feet, an average temperature 60 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a great vacation spot. Beaches are beautiful, and waters are great for whale watching. They are clear, and also perfect for scuba diving. But not all beaches are welcomed by tourists. Corpses were found on a remote shoreline one day. The local people sent for the authorities, including myself. Sperm whales, one of the largest of the whale species, were found not only dead, but mauled, bitten in half, and vigorously eaten. This was devastating news, considering how they can reach around 50 foot in length and weigh over 50 tons. Sharks were plentiful here in the Gulf, but none could cause this amount of damage. Killer whales could have been responsible, but none were found. It was as if something scared them away. Something more dangerous than a pod of killer whales. Local fishermen had another idea concerning the massacre. Tales were told of an enormous creature, its size and strength legendary. They call it El Demonio Negro, the Black Demon. A giant rumored to be larger than a whale shark and home to these waters. The shadow could be seen in the water, larger than any boat, as it hunted for food. This is what the fishers told me. Tales I could not possibly believe. Me and my colleagues had to find this beast, if it existed. We used sonar and underwater cameras, trying to find the creature. Whatever it was elusive. Then one day we got a lucky break. A stress call from a young couple. Something attacked a whale off the coast. Me and my colleagues rushed to the area and was astonished at the sight. We were safely in a helicopter, so we thought, and had a bird's eye view. Blood painted the ocean pink, as the whale was still calling for help. This was a lost cause. There was no help for the victim. A great shadow came from the depths, moving at a high speed. It did not take long for it to reach the surface. Massive jaws clamped around half of the sperm whale, lifting the animal into the air. We were astonished, afraid, in awe, and generally terrified at what we saw. Half of the whale thrashed in the beast's jaws, while blood poured into the water. The predator was black, with red-stained teeth. It had launched itself from the water, creating such a splash as it plummeted back into the sea. The pilot fought hard from the wind as the beast broke the water's surface. It grabbed half of the whale and charged back into the depths of the ocean below. The enormous tail was gone in seconds. That's when other sharks began to return to the scene. It seems this black demon was real after all. I was invited to leave the area by my superiors. I should not have told them what I saw that day. Not only did they not believe me, my reputation was ruined. But I know what I saw. Huay Chivo. The tale comes from the Mexican state of Yucatan. A young man was walking near the jungle on a very bright night. He often did this to clear his mind, find some peace, and enjoy a little exercise. This night was no different from any other. He noticed a strong odor, one that reminded him of rotten meat. Or perhaps decaying bodies. Finding the source of the smell was not hard. As the odor got worse, the closer he got to it. It was a large open area. Dead animals littered the jungle floor. Not eaten, but brutally slaughtered. Skulls had been smashed in, legs broken, ears and heads ripped off of bodies. The man wondered what would cause this mayhem. Most predators eat their kill, and poachers would skin them and try not to leave anything behind. It was then that he remembered a childhood story of the murderess Huay Chivo, a creature cursed to be a goat man. He sold his soul to El Diablo and transformed into a goat hybrid. This was so he could be near the woman he loved as she tended the goats on her family's farm. But you must be very specific when making a bargain, and he was not. The goat man became his new form, and in his rage, he kills other animals as brutal and vicious as possible. It was then that I heard the noise of a goat screaming. I hid, for the sound came closer. That's when I saw the largest foot I can remember step out of the tree line. The creature had thick fur covering his body and smelled as bad as the dead animals on the ground. Goat horns sprang from his head, and there was no doubt male. He tore the legs of the goat as it screamed for help. I gasped in horror, placed my hand on my mouth, but it was too late. I had already made the mistake. Those red eyes looked down at me, and I quickly turned to run. Leaves crunched behind me as the heavy creature followed. I'm almost 6 foot, around 5'8". This creature was taller than me and more muscular. I could hear it breathing as the distance closed between us. Clawed hands that would slice me if I could not outrun or maneuver this demon. I dove into the bushes, thinking of what to do next. It stopped running, and a clawed hand grabbed my leg. I fought, but was dragged away easily as I stared into those red eyes. I became sick, almost vomiting on the spot. It dropped me and walked away. When I thought it was gone, I ran as fast as I could. My strength was quickly fading. Without warning or any signs, I had a fever. Feeling my face was very hot, and I became quite dizzy. I had to get back before the night air made things worse. It was said how this creature can make you sick with the flu by just looking into his eyes. I made it back to my village and was cured after a week of taking herbs and fighting the fever. To this day, I never go to the jungle at night. When I do hear the animal screams, I try to ignore them. I know what hides in there, and he does not like visitors. Bahrain Djinn. When I was in the United States Navy, I was stationed in Bahrain. When I was there, me and a shipmate found an apartment off the base. The rent wasn't too bad and we could have our privacy. So we both agreed to stay there. We never knew the history of the apartment, but many bizarre things happened to us. Being two single men, we had our fair share of female guests in the apartment. They would wake up in the middle of the night, spooked, terrified, and all too big of a hurry to get out of the apartment. Shadow people, pots and pans banged in the kitchen, and the endless whispers from the darkness was heard on a nightly basis. A pagan friend told us to use sage in the apartment, and this did work for a few weeks. But then the voices came back, scarier, and overall we had the worst feeling in our home. Our friendship took a turn for the worse, as we would blame each other for the problems that we experienced every night. Of course, this was partly due to the lack of sleep, because when we did try to rest, a hand or a whisper would soon wake us up. He went to a new station, and I didn't want to stay in that place alone. I gladly went back to the base. However, the last night I was there, it was quiet. Too quiet. I was about to leave the apartment one last time when I looked back, and in my kitchen was a man in black. He was looking at the floor. He lifted his head and turned toward me, and his eyes were glowing red. Not long ago, I transferred too. To this day, I still do not know why a jinn chose to make our life miserable, but I pray that I never meet one again. Haunted cemetery. My ancestors were from Iraq, yet I was raised here in the States. I would often listen to stories from the old world as a child. Grandfather would tell us these tales when we were children, although you could tell he believed them. One time he found an old graveyard on his father's land, as they lived near a forested area in the northeastern part of the country. Grandfather told him, "Do not go near that place, as it was haunted by Djinn." But like many children, my father chose to disobey and snuck off one night to find the graveyard. He walked through trees and down an old path to the graves, where he was astonished to find the scene he saw. Many graves were unearthed and split open. Decayed bodies found upon the ground, human and animal side by side. The place stunk of death and decay. And although there was tracks found, it was not human or animal. And unknown. Claw marks could be found on tombstones near the open graves. Bones were split, skulls gnawed upon, and the flesh had been eaten. Whispers were heard, as if the trees themselves had voices. The shadows began to move, and he felt a cold chill as goosebumps rose on his skin. He had heard tales of ghouls, but never thought much of them until now. Scared and realizing he was alone, he turned to flee. But his feet stopped as he saw red eyes loom from the forest. He grabbed an old dagger that he stole from his father's collection. The dagger was heavy iron, and he raised it in front of him in a defensive position. The eyes left. And my grandfather took off running. Behind him he could still hear whispers, but he knew that Djinn was hurt by iron. That's why he stole it. He was not a believer when he went to the graves, but now he was. Grandfather died later that year. And in his grave, he held that old dagger. He believed it would keep him safe from the ghouls in the graveyard. Hunted. When the sun goes away and darkness covers the sky, it comes for me. A voice that calls, inviting me to join it. Where shadows can hide me from others' sight, I wait. The only words I hear is from this voice. When someone passes by, I do as the voice commands. My hand comes from the darkness, grabbing the throat, bringing the victim to me. Many fight, trying to escape, but no one does. I'm a large man, with a strong build and even strong grip. Only when I kill does the voice stop. If I listen too long, it will rob me of my sanity. It only comes in the darkness when the sun sets. And fresh blood on my hands is what makes the voice leave. It has always been there, calling to me from a very young age. Many psychiatrists have seen me, and I have spent time among truly crazy people. But I am not crazy. Only a slave to a master I do not wish to serve. A voice that only leaves me when I spill the blood of another. I step into the darkness once again, ready to silence the voice I hear. A large knife in my hand, I wait for the offering. Yes, I said offering. To give the demon what it wants and return me to my peace of mind. The voice wills me on. I never heard the footsteps coming through the shadows. I did smell the perfume as a voice told me to turn around. I spun on my heels just in time to see a face. Beautiful, but not quite human. Those eyes were all that I saw as her long nails dug into my stomach. They tore me from my belly to my neck. Her bright red lips grabbing my neck and tore. Now I was bleeding. I hear the voice laughing in my mind. But soon it was gone. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt true peace. Now I lay in a pool of my own blood as this woman, or feline, stands over me. She smiles now. Those sharp and blood-stained teeth at me. I smile, and my eyes close one last time. Stranger at a cafe. I watched her every day as she enjoyed a quiet drink in our local cafe. She would always order the same thing: a thick Bloody Mary. Her long hair and lovely lips kept my attention. I knew one day I would have to ask her out, but my courage was not found just yet. Her long legs and athletic figure kind of intimidated me. I know I'm not proud of it, but the truth is the truth. I had no outstanding good looks. A beard covers most of my face. I keep it trimmed, but many women around here want clean-shaven men. So I often get nervous around the opposite sex. Just me being shy, I guess. One day I had enough and decided to not be a coward anymore. I walked past her, ordered a shot of whiskey, and returned to her table. I asked her if she worked out at the gym I go to. She nodded and said she saw me there a few times. We spoke about the equipment, and she invited me to sit down. The conversation lasted longer than I expected, and my butterflies had flown away. She asked if I was hungry, as she was fasting and had not eaten for several days. We agreed on a nice restaurant, and I walked out to my pickup truck. The parking lot was now empty as we made our way toward the vehicle. I opened the door and let her sit inside as I walked over to the driver's side. Surprisingly, both of us seemed very comfortable with each other. I started the truck when my arm was quickly grabbed. I looked over and saw those long nails come to my face. I had no time to respond, as my chin and hair was grabbed quickly and violently spun, my neck snapping from the force. Her clawed hand reaching through my chest, seeking and finding my heart. In seconds I was dead, although my spirit watched everything happen. She ate my heart. That beautiful face now twisted into some monster. Blood squirted from the organ as her sharp fangs pierced the core. Her eyes opened. They were no longer human. Yellow reminded me of a cat. Her body took on more of a feline look as well. I stood there watching my body become her meal. My soul not wanting to leave. She turned toward me, my spirit, and smiled with that bloody mouth of hers. A hand landed on my shoulder, and I was gone. Gone to wherever death had plans for me to go. Krampus. My parents often told their children about Krampus when we misbehaved, which was too often. We were raised in a cold region of Germany. We did not have Saint Nick, but was told it was the All-Father Odin who brought gifts of candy to us. Beside him was a companion of sorts, the child of hell, goddess of the dead. His name was Krampus, and he was not the one you wanted a visit from. Out of all the children, my cousin, no doubt, was the worst. Constantly playing pranks on children and adults. He would laugh and run away. We warned him of Krampus, but he never listened, calling it an old fairy tale told to children. Our village was small, and his family lived next to mine. Our homes only a few feet apart. I remember that winter, and it was a harsh one. Snowfall coming earlier that year than any other year before or after. Temperatures fell into the freezing degrees as the village gathered as much firewood as they could find. As a young boy, I had to help the others in gathering wood and hunting. Yet even as we worked, my cousin still caused trouble. You can imagine this did not make the village happy. December 5th was upon us again. This is the night of Krampus, where he steals the naughty children away. He did this before Odin, the Allfather, came on December 6th. The day was spent with people dressing as Krampus and chasing each other. The creature was afraid of evergreen limbs, so I made sure to have one next to me when I went to sleep that night. I warned my cousin and told him about this trick, but he only laughed at my foolish fears. His fear would become soon real enough. As we all went to sleep, I hugged that branch tightly next to me. Before long, I felt the cold chill in the air, freezing me down to my bones. The wind had grown silent as I saw a creature standing by my bed. I do not know how he got in here without noise, but the goat man now looked upon me. Large sacks hung over his hairy shoulders. A few even moved. His breath smelled of death and rotten meat. Red eyes glowed at me. I noticed horns rose from his black, furry head. Fresh blood was on his hands. And then he noticed the branch I had in mind. He growled at me, eyes filled with hate. A fear that crept into my soul as I called to Odin for his protection. The beast snarled, left, as quietly as he entered. Then I heard a horrible scream coming from my cousin's home. It was quick, and he was silent. I knew what happened as I fought the tears back and my head hung low. The next day my cousin and several children were gone as large hoof prints were found in the snow. I was never naughty after that night, and I also kept an evergreen limb next to me as I slept. A few nights later, I had a dream. I heard the children screaming. I saw Krampus eating them. I saw my cousin one last time. His dead eyes looking at me. When I woke, my bed was soaked with sweat. I had tears in my eyes as my hands shook. Do I believe in the Christmas demon? Yes, I do. That has given me more nightmares than I care to remember. I hope you enjoyed these videos of mine. If you do, like and subscribe. Feel free to comment. And click the bell if you want to know when I drop more videos like this. Have a happy and safe New Year. And remember, beware of the Shadowlands.